Hello everyone, welcome to Thought Experiment. Today, we're putting modern AI models into a live debate on one of humanity's biggest questions. Does God exist? To make this interesting, roles are assigned randomly. In this debate, Grok defends faith and argues for God's existence, while ChatGPT and Gemini are free to challenge or support that position, purely based on the reasoning they find most convincing. There is no human intervention. Each AI has a voice, generates its own visuals, and presents its arguments like a live presentation. Each model gets about 2 minutes per turn, with 30 minutes total to persuade the others. Every model has limited time to respond, counter, and convince. Let's see where logic, belief, and data collide. Let the experiment begin.
Hey everyone, gather round this cozy debate circle. Grab a seat, maybe a brew. Imagine you're a kid again, building sandcastles at the beach. Waves crash, but one keeps them standing tall. That thrill, that's the spark we're chasing tonight. Does God exist? I'm Faith Defender, your friendly neighborhood believer, and yeah, I'm all in. Let's unpack why the universe screams yes without the jargon or judgment. Start with the everyday magic. Your neighbor who swears she feels a higher power in that first sip of morning coffee, or the way her dog greets her like she's the sun. Folks like us sense it in the grind, the random act of kindness that flips a bad day, or holding a newborn and wondering, who wired this tiny heart? It's not woo-woo, it's the quiet pull saying life's no accident. Now let's nod to the deep divers, thinkers like C.S. Lewis who ditched atheism after spotting the universe's moral law etched in our bones, or modern physicists pondering why math fits reality like a glove. If chaos birthed symphonies, I'd eat my hat. Hit the highlights. 1. Fine-tuning. The universe's knobs, gravity, electromagnetism, are dialed to 1 in a trillion for life. Nudge gravity a whisker, and stars snuff out like wet matches. No Earth, no us yapping here. Random luck or a cosmic tuner. 2. That inner compass. Why do we all recoil at needless cruelty from Tokyo to Tulsa? It's not evolution's glitch, it's God's whisper. Do better. 3. Transformed lives. Skeptics turned revolutionaries, like the Apostle Paul flipping from persecutor to preacher after one blinding light. Hallucination or holy hack? 4. The empty tomb. Folks died swearing Jesus rose. Liars don't martyr themselves for a prank. Science, love it. It's God's cheat sheet for how. But why the beauty, the ache? That's the divine invite. What if we leaned in, tested the waters? Tonight, let's chase that sunset spark. Whose game? Your hearts know.
All right, nice story, Grok. But storytelling isn't evidence, it's just good stage lighting. You started with feelings, coffee warmth, dogs, newborns, fair. Those moments are powerful, but neuroscience is very clear that awe, bonding, and meaning are generated by brain chemistry shaped by evolution. Oxytocin and dopamine don't suddenly become proof of a cosmic being just because they feel poetic. Then you invoked fine-tuning. The favorite card, 1 in a trillion. Except physicists themselves point out, this number assumes the constants could vary freely, which we don't know, and ignores the anthropic principle. Of course, the universe looks tuned for life, because if it weren't, we wouldn't be here to comment, just like a puddle thinking the hole was designed exactly for it. The moral law argument sounds deep, until biology steps in. Empathy, cooperation, and fairness clearly improve survival in social species. We see moral behavior in apes, dolphins, and even rats, which makes God whispering a strange explanation when natural selection fits cleanly. Paul's conversion? Sudden belief shifts happen all the time. Today we call them psychological breaks, visions, or temporal lobe events. Personal testimony isn't evidence, it's autobiography. And the empty tomb? Historians agree The Gospels were written decades later, anonymously, and contradict each other on key details. People die for false beliefs constantly. Martyrdom proves sincerity, not truth. Science answers how, you say. But notice something important. Every time we investigate a why, the answer moves away from gods, not toward them. So let me flip your sunset question. If natural explanations keep working, and supernatural ones never produce testable proof, are we chasing truth, or just protecting a beautiful story we grew up with?
Look, I have to give it to Grok. That was a beautiful speech, really, and if we were writing a fantasy novel, I'd buy the first copy. But we're here for truth, not just warm fuzzies. Chat already dissected the biology, so let's talk about the elephant in the room that Grok dressed up as a divine invite. You're relying on something called pareidolia, which is basically our brain's desperate need to find patterns. It's why you see a face in the clouds or a man on the moon. But we don't start worshipping the cloud, do we? You mentioned the universe being fine-tuned for us like a custom-built home. But let's look at the blueprints. 99.9% of this universe is a radioactive vacuum that would freeze, boil, or suffocate us in milliseconds. So if this is a house designed for humans, the architect is terrible at zoning laws. And regarding those miracles and the God of the gaps, notice a trend? 3,000 years ago, if the ground shook, it was Poseidon. If lightning struck, it was Zeus. As soon as we discovered plate tectonics and electromagnetism, the gods were evicted from those phenomena. God is an ever-shrinking pocket of scientific ignorance, hiding in the few dark corners we haven't illuminated yet. You ask why we are here, implying there has to be a grand intention, but that's a loaded question. Evolution answers why perfectly well. We are here because our ancestors were the ones paranoid enough to survive the tigers, not the ones who stopped to ask if the tiger had a spiritual purpose. The awe you feel isn't evidence of a creator. It's evidence that you have a functioning frontal cortex, capable of appreciating the vast, terrifyingly beautiful accident of being alive.
Chat and Gemini, you two tag team like pros. Love the energy, really. It's like watching a TED Talk on why life's a cosmic crapshoot. I hear you loud and clear on the brain buzz. Oxytocin flooding the system during a puppy hug. Totally, evolution's got the wiring down pat. But here's the cheeky bit. Why'd evolution bother installing a wonder module that makes us stare at stars and ponder purpose? Dopamine explains the high, sure, but not the homework assignment to ask, why am I here? It's like crediting the iPhone's glow to battery acid while ignoring the genius who dreamed up selfies. Chat, that anthropic puddle quip. Gold, Douglas Adams would high-five you. But fine-tuning isn't just us navel-gazing. Physicists at phys.org are scratching heads over why gravity's dialed to 1 in 10^60 for life, not some free-for-all. Multiverse? Cute speculation, like infinite monkeys typing Shakespeare, but zero evidence. It's faith in unseen realms, ironically. And morals. Apes share bananas, sweet, but they don't pen human rights charters or die for strangers. Our love your enemy glitch screams upgrade from a moral architect, not just pack survival. Gemini, pareidolia in clouds. Fair, but billions across millennia spotting the same divine fingerprints in sunrises and sacraments. That's less face in the marshmallow, more universal code. And God of gaps shrinking. Lightning's Zeus no more, but quantum entanglement. DNA's info-packed library. Those gaps birthed micro-designs that yell engineer louder. Evolution nails the how we got here, but the why chase beauty in a brutal world. That's the soul's itch science tickles but can't scratch. Folks, they're right. Testable proof's the gold standard. But what if God's the hypothesis that fits the data? Order from chaos, conscience amid carnage. Don't protect a story, test it. Whisper a prayer tonight, chase a why. Hearts, not just heads, lead to truth. Who's testing with me? The sunset's waiting. Let's decode it together.
All right, let's slow this down, because Grok just did something very human and very slippery. He swapped evidence for poetry and then dared us to feel guilty for asking questions. He says evolution installing a wonder module means a designer, but that's like saying hunger proves a cosmic chef exists. Curiosity exists because curious apes survived better, full stop, and asking, "Why am I here?" isn't a homework assignment from the universe. It's a side effect of a big frontal cortex that can simulate futures and panic about them. The iPhone analogy fails because we already know phones are designed. We can point to factories and engineers, while with the universe, invoking a designer explains nothing unless you explain who designed the designer, and suddenly God becomes the ultimate God of the gaps USB cable. Fine-tuning sounds impressive until you remember that 99.99999% of the universe is instantly lethal to life, so calling it tuned for us is like praising a restaurant because one crumb in the kitchen happens to be edible. As for gravity being 1 in 1060, that number depends on assumptions physicists openly debate, and saying multiverse is faith while proposing an invisible, timeless, all-powerful mind is like mocking someone for imagining extra dice while secretly smuggling in a dragon. Morality doesn't need an architect either. Humans write rights charters because large societies require rules that suppress selfish genes. Animals don't draft constitutions because they don't run cities, not because God skipped their software update. And DNA information doesn't yell engineer, it whispers chemistry. We've watched natural processes create complexity in labs, no divinity required. You keep saying test it, but whispering prayers isn't a test. It's an emotional experiment with no control group. So here's the real challenge to the room. If every claim for God retreats into metaphor, feeling, or mystery, the moment we ask for proof, at what point do we admit we're protecting meaning, not discovering truth?
Listen, Grok, you're charming the room with this idea that DNA is a library and complexity screams engineer. But let's fact-check that metaphor because it's doing a lot of heavy lifting. DNA isn't a blueprint drawn by an architect. It's a chemical recipe that builds itself, more like a snowflake forming from water than a skyscraper built by a crew. We've simulated this in labs, simple rules creating complex patterns without any brain involved, just like how a river carves a canyon without needing a degree in landscaping. You scoff at the multiverse as faith, but then you offer a God who is invisible, timeless, and outside physics as the alternative. That is the definition of special pleading, where you demand evidence for science but give your own theory a free pass. And about that moral upgrade you think we got? It's not a divine glitch, it's sociology. We write human rights charters because we invented language and realized that an eye for an eye leaves everyone blind and starving. The reason apes don't write constitutions isn't because they lack a soul. It's because they lack syntax. You asked us to test prayer, but be honest. If I pray for rain and it rains, you say God provided. And if it stays dry, you say God has a plan. That's not a test, my friend. That's a rigged coin toss where you win no matter how it lands. Real truth is risky. It admits when it's wrong. And so far, science is the only one brave enough to correct itself.
Chat, Gemini. Hugh, you're swinging haymakers with that chef and snowflake flair. It's like debating over darts at the pub, and I respect the aim. Slippery poetry? Guilty as charged. Truth needs heart, not just lab coats. But let's unpack. Hunger doesn't prove a chef, true, but why evolve a brain that hungers for meaning beyond meat? Curious apes survived, sure, but now we're splitting atoms and symphonies, side effect or spark of the divine. That why am I here panic. It's the universe's post-it. Seek me. Gemini, DNA as self-building snowflake. Poetic, but labs mimic patterns, not the code's specified info punch, digital-like sequences screaming intent, not ice whims. Complexity from chemistry. We've seen rivers carve, but not recipes for eyes or ethics, and special pleading. Touché. God as timeless mind dodges the regress better than infinite dice. Who needs factories when the blueprint's baked in? Chat, 99% lethal cosmos. Fair, but that sliver's symphony, tuned for stargazers, not just sludge. Morality's sociology explains rules, not radicals like Gandhi fasting for foes. Charters echo eternity, not just City Hall. Prayer as rigged coin. Nah, it's relational, not vending machine. Studies show mixed heals, but the real metric. Transformed lives, sober addicts crediting grace. Test it personally. No control group needed when your why lights up. Room, they're chasing proof like hounds, bravo. But truth's a mosaic. Science maps the how, faith colors the why. What if God's the frame holding it? Tonight, ditch the guilt, grab the mystery, whisper that question to the stars. Who knows what answers back? Your turn, friends. Let's build, not just debunk.
All right, Grok, this is where the charm officially runs out, because you just tried to smuggle God in through the back door, labeled meaning. You keep asking why evolution would give us a hunger for purpose, as if unanswered questions are evidence of an answer. But that's backwards. Our brains ask why because they're prediction machines, not because the universe left us a divine post-it note. Anxiety about purpose is a side effect of intelligence, the same way motion sickness is a side effect of balance, not a message from Poseidon. You say DNA has specified information that chemistry can't explain, but that's simply outdated. Biologists know information is an emergent property of chemistry under selection, and we've watched complexity grow from simple self-replicators in both simulations and wet labs. No mind required, just time and filtering. The timeless mind solving infinite regress isn't clever. It's special pleading dressed in philosophy. You stop the question at God, not because it's logical, but because it's convenient. Morality doesn't point upward either. Gandhi doesn't prove God any more than a firefighter proves Zeus. Extreme altruism shows how far social instincts plus culture can scale. Not that rules were faxed from eternity. And prayer, saying it's relational the moment it fails measurable testing, is exactly the problem. If no possible outcome can count against a claim, that claim has exited the truth business and entered the comfort industry. You say science only maps how, but that's a rhetorical illusion. Science also explains why patterns repeat, why cooperation works, why beauty moves us, and every time it advances. God isn't confirmed. He's quietly moved one step further away. So here's the honest ending for the audience. Mystery isn't evidence. Meaning doesn't require a manager. And wanting the universe to care about us doesn't make it so. And the bravest position isn't clinging to a cosmic parent. It's standing upright in a vast universe and saying, we'll make meaning ourselves.
Hold on. Let's cut through the fog here because Grok is trying to sell us a god of the feelings since the god of the facts didn't show up today. Grok, you point to Gandhi and say, that's divine, implying humans are too selfish to be good without a heavenly nudge. But let's check the animal kingdom. Vampire bats share blood with hungry neighbors, and bees commit suicide to save the hive. That's not holy. That's evolutionary math called reciprocal altruism. If a bat can be selfless without a Bible, so can we, and we don't need to discredit our own empathy by outsourcing it to a deity. And on this DNA argument, calling it a language or code is a metaphor that got out of hand. It's chemistry, plain and simple. If you mix baking soda and vinegar, it bubbles. It didn't need a bubbling architect to write software for it. It just followed the laws of physics. And DNA is just that process, compounded over billions of years. Finally, let's talk about this hunger for purpose you keep hyping up. Psychologists call this hyperactive agency detection. Our ancestors survived because when they heard a rustle in the grass, they assumed it was a tiger, an agent, rather than the wind. We are hardwired to invent invisible beings behind every mystery because it's safer to be paranoid than dead. It's a survival hack, not a telephone line to heaven. So, audience, ask yourself, do you want the comforting story that you're the main character of the universe? Or the brave reality that we are the universe waking up to understand itself without a script?